Braden Smith wins the preseason Big Ten Player of the Year. But Kentucky is point guard you?
You are Locked On Boilermakers, your daily podcast on the Purdue Boilermakers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Boilermakers here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I am your host. I am Nick Arvin. We have a fun episode of Locked On Boilermakers coming your way today because the Big Ten Awards preseason awards, they dropped today. We all expected it, but Braden Smith announced as the preseason Big Ten Player of the Year. Of course, applause for Braden Smith. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about how TKR, although his name was called, I think he's a bit disrespected because he was not unanimous. That surprised me. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about the list of guys alongside him. And then we'll finish up the show talking about AP poll predictions because some polls are already coming out. We got ESPN. They're listing their top 25. Purdue, they find themselves towards the top. We'll talk about the AP poll, which is coming out on Monday. If you guys are just now seeing us on Locked On Boilermakers, make sure to subscribe, make sure to like and comment. It helps us out a ton. I really appreciate everybody. Thank you guys for watching. But today, awards come out. Braden Smith, National Player of the Year. He's on that watch list. We all know it. He's the favorite to win that award this year. And to be expected, he won the Big Ten preseason Player of the Year. What does it mean? Not a whole ton because he's got to prove it throughout the season that he is that guy. The preseason awards, kind of just a watch list like we see a lot. These are the guys that we should expect to have big years from. It gives the fans a chance to see, hey, maybe for the casual viewer, what other teams got, what players on other teams we should be expecting to be on the first team, the second team, and the third team. And we'll talk about it a little bit later. But a common misconception with this is that this is for the first team. All the players that were announced on this list are for the first team. And that's not the case because there are 10 guys that made this list. Preseason all Big Ten team. This isn't the first team. These are just guys that made the all Big Ten team. It's not like postseason where you get 1, 2, and 3. You get 3 Big Ten teams, and then guys are split up onto the first, second, and third. This is just a list of 10 guys, a watch list that are on that all Big Ten caliber going into this season. So I saw a lot of people saying, oh, so-and-so got snubbed out of making the Big Ten preseason first team. Well, no, they got snubbed out of making the watch list for any of the first teams. And for TKR, who we'll talk about later, he was not unanimous for any of the teams, which is really confusing. But Braden Smith, of course, doesn't have to worry about that. He was the unanimous Player of the Year. He was the unanimous Big Ten, all Big Ten team. And we knew this. He won it last year, but it just goes to show for Braden Smith, kind of the expectations of this guy going into this year. I feel like everybody, and I feel like kind of the media perception on this guy reflects that Braden Smith is the best point guard in the nation. The stats absolutely reflect it, especially as a playmaker, averaging 8.7 assists per game last year. Going into this offseason, I feel like everybody kind of understands what Braden Smith is going to be for this team this coming year, especially with the team built around him. This team has national championship expectations. Braden Smith, of course, has National Player of the Year expectations. And, of course, that coveted record, the historic record over 30 years that Bobby Hurley has had that record at Duke, the national college assist record that has stood the test of time. Braden Smith, he has the opportunity to break that this year. This year is going to be one of the biggest years for a college basketball player in general of all time. Braden Smith has the opportunity to do stuff that no point guard has ever done. He has the opportunity to be in historic company and go down in the history books. And Pat Kelsey, Louisville's head coach, over the summer, he says that Louisville is point guard you. And while they have a great freshman point guard in Mikael Brown Jr., who is likely going to be starting for the Cardinals this year, they're going to have a good backcourt. But to say that Louisville is point guard university when you have a guy in Braden Smith who is absolutely balling out, who has proved that he is the best point guard in the nation. I just think that that is incredibly unfair to say when, like I said, Braden Smith, 15.8 points last year, 8.7 assists, the second highest assist numbers in the nation behind Ryan Nembhard at Gonzaga. Braden Smith proved that he was the best point guard in the year last year. So to say that your team with a freshman point guard, although Brown is probably going to be a good point guard in this league, that is insane to say that you are point guard over Purdue with Braden Smith. Crazy, crazy, crazy. We don't face off against Louisville this year. There is a chance that we face off against them in March. There is a good chance at that. However, we're not going to see them in the regular season, but I'm sure that Braden Smith would love to face off against Mikel Brown Jr. Obviously, Mikel Brown, he's not the one saying that. It's Pat Kelsey. Pat Kelsey talking high on his guys, but that's unfair to say when, like I said, Purdue, they definitely do have the best point guard in the nation. The Big Ten Award today shows it. He's the betting favorite for the National Player of the Year. And like I said, the player doesn't say it in Louisville's case. It's more of a Pat Kelsey type thing. But then Kentucky fires back. Jalen Lowe, who is the starting point guard at Kentucky, he fires back at Pat Kelsey in Louisville, and he says, no, I am the best point guard. Kentucky is point guard you. And so that's a bit of a different take. And for Braden Smith, you do face off against Jalen Lowe. You do face off against Kentucky. And you face off against him in just about 16 days when you head over to Rupp for the exhibition. Purdue against Kentucky. You see this guy and you have the opportunity to prove that you are the point guard. You are the best point guard in the nation. And I know that this dialogue, it kind of gets out of hand at times. Everyone wants to claim that their university is this and that. Everyone wants to claim that they are this, they are better than this guy. But you just can't say that with a guy in Braden Smith because he's so unanimously better. He's so unanimously the best point guard in the nation that no one else really has a claim to saying that they are point guard you right now because Braden Smith, he's that guy. He has the opportunity to do things that nobody has ever done in the history of college basketball. And that's something that doesn't get talked about enough. So big day for Braden Smith in terms of preseason honors. But one more thing I want to cover when we talk about this whole point guard you discussion is that in terms of being quote unquote point guard you got to have more than just one. And we talk about Mikel Brown Jr., the freshman starting for Louisville. Jalen Lowe thinks that he is absolutely the best, and he's starting for Kentucky this year. Braden Smith, of course, starting for Purdue. But I think the X factor in this conversation is the fact that Purdue has the best freshman point guard in the nation coming off the bench in Omir Meyer. You have Braden Smith. You have Omir Meyer. These are two of the pristine point guards in college basketball this year. And we talk about it from an accolade perspective. Everyone talks about the accolades. Everyone talks about the legacy. And for these two guys, that's going to be there. Omir Meyer, he has a long history in the NBA ahead of himself. He has a long career. And Braden Smith, he's going to go down as one of the best point guards to ever play the game from a college basketball perspective. So in terms of legacy, I don't think that these guys care about the accolades as much as they care about winning games, but it's absolutely going to translate for Purdue this year. The fact that Braden Smith has the opportunity to not just cement himself as that guy that has that opportunity to break that record, win a national championship, win a national player of the year. He put himself in that position to continue Purdue's lineage of 4 straight Big Ten player of the year, Zach Edey, and then transitioning to Braden Smith. These guys have the opportunity to do that because of Matt Painter, because of the system. And within that, it transfers over to winning games. Purdue is going to win games. And as exciting as those accolades are, as exciting as it is that Braden Smith is that preseason player of the year for the Big Ten, it's going to be earned in the regular season. It's going to be earned in the Big Ten tournament, and it's going to be earned in March. Purdue, the most exciting thing about this team this year, it's not an accolade. It's not preseason honors. It's the fact that these guys are hungry for a victory. They're hungry to get this national championship. And if you get a player of the year, if you get national honors on the way, so be it. I'm sure Braden Smith is going to be in those conversations. He's going to prove that Kentucky, Louisville, they are not point guard you. Purdue is, and they are sure as heck going to get more wins than those teams because these guys are hungry. We'll talk about TKR, how he's another one who is hungry and absolutely underrated. He got snubbed today. We'll talk about that. Stick with us. We're talking TKR here next. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS top safety pick awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how they craft every single model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Today's episode is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I love Monarch because they help me cut out unused subscriptions. You can do that too. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. In our previous segment, we talked about Braden Smith and how Purdue's claim to point guard you should be more seen because they have the best point guard in the nation. And naturally, that's the definition. So Braden Smith, obviously going to be a factor for Purdue this year. And an All-American, deserves all the recognition. But there's someone else for Purdue who absolutely deserves recognition. Another guy who's going to be in that National Player of the Year race. That guy is Trey Kaufman-Renn. And for TKR today, those awards, they were kind of interesting because the one thing that I wanted to see was, would he be a unanimous member of that all Big Ten team? Because obviously I kind of knew that Braden Smith, he would be the Big Ten Player of the Year because, I mean, he won it last year. You return as a senior. I would just kind of assume that that gets carried on to Braden Smith. But for TKR, I wanted to see, does he fall on that list? Obviously, I assume that he would, of 10 guys, unless something crazy happens. But would he be unanimous? And I was kind of disappointed to see that he was not unanimous. No. And for a guy who was in the Big Ten first team last year, this was a guy who is the only returning member alongside Braden Smith, the two returning members of the Big Ten first team. Braden Smith, he was unanimous, but TKR was not. And I think that that's a little bit disrespectful to Trey Kaufman-Renn. I think that TKR is really starting to be one of the more disrespected, one of the more underrated players in the nation in terms of the way that the national media looks at this guy, the way that these voters, the writers that vote on these awards, look at him. We'll go over the list right now because I do want to provide that context to you. So the preseason All Big Ten team, Bennett starts out of Iowa. Guard, fine. Senior, he's proved himself. He deserves to be on there. Nothing wrong with that. Yaxel Lindenberg of Michigan, graduate student. He's going to be a key player. I want to see him and TKR battle up against each other. That's fine. Nick Martinelli of Northwestern, senior. Haven't seen the most out of Martinelli, but I have seen enough to know that he's a good player. Fine. Bruce Thornton, senior, out of Ohio State. He's fine. Nate Biddle, senior, out of Oregon. Jackson Shelston, he's a junior out of Oregon. And then TKR, of course, out of Purdue. Braden Smith out of Purdue. Donovan Dent out of UCLA. John Blackwell Jr. out of Wisconsin. So all names that we're going to hear a lot of in terms of Big Ten play this year. We're going to face off against a lot of these guys. Like I said, excited for the Yaxel matchup, but for TKR, he wasn't unanimous. The only unanimous guy on this list was Braden Smith. But like I said earlier in the show, this isn't the first team. And I would understand Trey Kaufman-Renn not being unanimous if it was a first team. I don't think that would be fair at all because he was a unanimous member of the first team last year. And by that logic, if you're going to transfer Braden Smith over to being the player of the year, and that's fine, he's unanimous, then why isn't TKR a unanimous member of the all Big Ten team? Not just the all Big Ten team, not the all Big Ten first team, just the all Big Ten team. Someone who voted on this is saying that TKR is not a top 10 player in the Big Ten when he has proved that he is a top 10 player in the Big Ten. And not just did he prove that last year, not just was he unanimous last year, but this year he's going to take a jump because Braden Smith is going to be improved as a playmaker. He's going to have more opportunities to produce as a playmaker. You bring in Oscar Clough, who can rebound, who can play defense. Daniel Jacobson is healthy again. If you're TKR, you don't have to battle against the biggest sinners in the Big Ten defensively, and that gives you more opportunity to play offense this year for Purdue. That's been something that I've really wanted to make known, that TKR, he's going to have a lot more potential to produce offensively this year, especially whenever you move him over to the power forward position. So the fact that he's so underrated, the fact that he's so disrespected, and people just view him as, yeah, he's a good player. Don't know if he deserves to be on the all Big Ten team, though. That's outrageous. The fact that he is not unanimous is outrageous. I feel like TKR, he has absolutely done enough. Even last year to garner that spot. But the fact that he does all that, he consistently improves all season long. He averages 20 points last year, 6.5 rebounds, 2.2 assists. There's nobody like this guy. I think he produced like the best big man in the country last year. The only one that is even close is Yaxel out of Michigan, just because he put up double-digit rebound numbers. He's the only person even in conversations with TKR. And I feel like the fact that TKR, he isn't looked at that way, it's so disrespectful to him. And he has the opportunity to show people this year that disrespect, it's not warranted, because he truly is one of the best players in the nation. He's going to be on All-American watch list this year. He's going to be on that National Player of the Year watch list this year. And we talked about it earlier, Braden Smith, how he's got all the Player of the Year recognition, but don't count TKR out for that National Player of the Year award, because as much as Braden Smith deserves it, and he will absolutely get it if he breaks that assist record, that award hasn't gone to a guard since 2018 when it was Jalen Brunson at Villanova. Forwards absolutely have the benefit of the doubt in that award voting. So TKR, he fits that perfectly. He doesn't get the respect right now, but I think that he's going to be averaging more points, believe it or not, more than 20 at the power forward position, because he's not going to be as much foul trouble. You can have him on the floor more. He's going to have the ball in his hands more. You have more opportunities with Braden Smith to make plays. You can throw Meyer in with TKR, and then that's a spot where you can make plays, because Meyer, he spaces out the floor, great with the ball in his hands, great as a playmaker. And then Oscar Clough, he opens up the pick and roll. There's just so many more opportunities for TKR. It's insane to me that this man, he was unanimous first team last year, averages 26 and 4, whatever he averaged last year. Absolutely insane when he had to play the center at a lot of times. And this guy is still underrated going into this year, going into his senior campaign. I feel like, if anything, people should have higher expectations for TKR. He should be more respected going into this year instead of being less respected. I don't feel like he deserves to be not necessarily in the shadows of Braden Smith, but I feel like sometimes people underrate TKR because of how good Braden Smith is. Like, people don't think that Purdue can have two players that really are that good, that really can be All-Americans, that really can be National Player of the Years. It's just a unique situation for Purdue where Not many teams have two players that could genuinely and are the front runners for National Player of the Year. Purdue, they have that this year in Braden Smith and TKR. And I think that it's not going to be long before those two guys get the respect they deserve, because it's a unique situation, but it's a situation that's going to propel Purdue to a lot of success this year, because they have the best point guard in the nation and they have the most underrated forward in the nation. But that AP poll comes out. It comes out next Monday. This Monday, in just about 4 or 5 days, that poll is coming out. Will Purdue be at number 1? Let's make us some predictions. Let's talk about where ESPN has Purdue. We'll do that. Stick with us. Final segment here next. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Playing Prize Picks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley's rushing for a touchdown, and you're in the game. I love how quick it is. You can make your lineup in under a minute, and Prize Picks, they just added stacks. So if I want to ride with a player, I can select their pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns all in one lineup. Get on it now. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's Locked On College for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. So the AP poll, it comes out Monday. At the time of filming, that is in 4 days. So exciting times. Excited for Monday. Excited for that AP poll to come out. And a lot of people are talking about Purdue's position. I want to be number 1. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care about having a target on the back. I don't care about anything. I want to be number 1 because I think this Purdue team, they can handle the pressure of being number 1. And I think that they absolutely want to be number 1. And think about the possibility. They have so many out-of-conference games this year that are going to be tough in the beginning of the season, that are going to be fun matchups. You have that number 1 status. It's going to be a great year for Purdue basketball. There's no question about it. But the kind of last ranking that really just came out today before the AP poll, it was of ESPN and Jeff Borzello. He gave a good look as the final rankings. His final ESPN top 25 rankings came out, and I feel like it kind of gives a good expectation of where maybe Purdue will fall in the AP poll on Monday. So I just wanted to go over it before we headed out on today's episode. So I'll give the top 10. I don't need to talk about much more. I think that the top 10 is a good number. We'll start at number 10. Coming in at number 10, the Duke Blue Devils. Of course, Purdue won't have to face off against this team this year, but they're going to be good. Duke is going to be good. They're always good. Caleb Foster, he'll be back. Cameron Boozer, of course, one of the top prospects coming in out of this class. There's a lot of expectations behind Duke. I don't know if they'll be as good as they were last year behind Cooper Flagg, but certainly maybe a team that Purdue finds themselves faced off against in March, and that will be a fun matchup. Do want to note, coming in at 11, Texas Tech, there is an opportunity that if Purdue wins their first game in Baha Mar in the Bahamas, that they'll face off against Texas Tech early on in that out-of-conference, ranked at 11 now. That could be a fun matchup. 1 versus 11, potentially. Purdue is still undefeated, potentially. There's a lot of expectations. Texas Tech is definitely a team to look out for. They have a couple transfers from VCU. Luke Bamboyi, he'll be a center for them this year. LeJean Watts at Washington State, 13.7 points a game last year at Washington State. Texas Tech, they bring in transfers. That's going to be a talented team. Still a team trying to mesh themselves together, but come out of conference, I think that Purdue will have a fun matchup against Texas Tech. At number 9 comes the Kentucky Wildcats. We'll be talking about that team a lot going forward just because we scrimmage off against them in 16 days. But this is a team that they bring in 3 transfers that are going to be in their starting lineup. Jalen Lowe, who we just talked about, 16.8 points per game at Pitt, says that Kentucky is point guard you. They have Denzel Aberdeen, who was a part of that national championship team last year at Florida. Otega Owe, who returns. He's going to be in the National Player of the Year watch list. Brandon Garrison, Jaden Quaintance, plenty of talent for that Wildcat team. Michigan, the Wolverines, who Purdue will face off against in conference play this year. Someone to look out for is Yaxel Lindbergh. He had 17.7 points per game at University of Alabama, Birmingham. He comes over to Michigan, and he is one of the pristine players in college basketball. He's going to be a guy going to crack one of those Big Ten, all Big Ten team lists at the end of the year. At Mackey, Michigan versus Purdue, him facing off against TKR. That's going to be fun. I can't wait to face off against Michigan. That's one that I think Purdue, they may lose that one. Now, I'm not saying that they will. I'm not saying that Purdue will lose at Mackey, but it's going to be tough. There's a tough stretch. Michigan falls into that stretch. Number 8, it just goes to show how many top 10 games are on Purdue's schedule, how many opportunities for quad 1 wins there really are. And then moving up, number 7, BYU. Probably won't see them this year, but with AJ DeBonsta, that's going to be a team that just naturally with his star power are going to be in the spotlight. So not surprised to see them at number 7. Coming in at number 6, Louisville. Louisville under Pat Kelsey, that's been a resurgence. That program was in the dumps. They've really come back. Like I said, that conversation under Pat Kelsey about point guard due. They have the number 8 player in ESPN's top 100 and Mikel Brown Jr. He'll be starting at point guard for them this year. And they have a deep backcourt this year behind Isaac McNeely. He was at Virginia last year. Ryan Conwell at Xavier. The team's going to be solid. They're going to be good. But overall, I think that Purdue, if they face off against them potentially in the tournament, they're going to be better because I think that Braden Smith is the best point guard in the nation. And I don't think that a freshman really compares to him because Braden Smith, he's so much more mature at that position. But Louisville, that's a team to watch. Probably don't see them this year, but still. At number 6, and then at number 5, St. John's. St. John's and Rick Pitino, they've taken a different approach in recent years. As Rick Pitino, he says the point guard position is dead. He says, I'm not even going to recruit high school kids anymore. They just go after the portal. And this year is a portal-filled team. They have Ian Jackson from North Carolina, Joseph Sanon, who had 11.9 at Arizona State, Isaiah Sellers from Stanford, and Bryce Hopkins, who was at Kentucky, and then at Providence. He was at 15.5 points per game, was hurt last year, but was at Providence the year before. St. John's, they'll be fine. Probably won't see St. John's. UConn, more of the same story. That team, they have some returning guys. They bring in Silas Damari Jr. at the guard position from Georgia. UConn at number 4 will be solid. They're going to be a team that's fighting for a 1 seed, fighting to win the Big East. Houston, that's another team. They beat us in the Sweet 16. I've said it. Don't give up on Houston because they're going to be just as good this year. They return 3 guys into their starting lineup in Milos Uzom, Emmanuel Sharp, Joseph Tugler. They bring in Isaiah Harwell from number 14 in last year's class, and Chris Senak, who is number 6. Houston is rebuilt. And then at number 2, Florida, which that kind of tells you where Purdue is, according to ESPN. Florida, they were the national championships last year, and they bring in Boogie Flant from Arkansas. They bring in Xavier Lee from Princeton. Alex Condon was ranked over TKR in terms of being a potential preseason All-American. I don't think that he deserves it. There's a lot of talk around Florida, where they stack up compared to Purdue. I think in terms of where the AP poll is Monday, the 3 teams that are going to be fighting for that number 1 will be Houston, Florida, and Purdue. Absolutely no doubt about it. I think Purdue deserves it over Florida because I feel like they have more to prove. I think that Braden Smith, he's more developed. I think that TKR is more developed. I think that overall, I think Purdue, they developed a better roster than where Florida is. Albeit Florida, they proved it last year that they won the national championship. They proved on the court that they deserve that number 1 role. But I think that in terms of where these teams are going this year, I think that Purdue is on the way up. I think that Florida is on the way down. And last thing that we want to know before we head out today, of course, Purdue is ranked number 1. There's, like he says, not a whole lot of doubts about where Purdue is going to be this year. They're going to be good no matter what. They deserve to be the number 1 team. But one thing I did want to note is that Mr. Borzello, Jeff Borzello of ESPN, in his projected starting lineup for Purdue this year, Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, C.J. Cox. So he has C.J. Cox starting for Purdue. That's something interesting to note, where some of the national guys and these ESPN companies, guys that don't necessarily focus just on Purdue, but more of college basketball as a whole, he views CJ Cox as the starter for this Purdue team. We're going to talk a lot about that because CJ Cox and Jakari Harris, they're both fighting for that spot. Cox definitely worthy. We'll have to see. But overall, this Purdue team, they deserve everything that's coming for them. And I think that they absolutely have a national championship coming for them this year. They're potentially going to be number one in the AP poll. We'll absolutely have an episode as soon as that comes out because it's an exciting time for the Purdue Boilermakers, and it's an exciting time for the Locked On Podcast Network because Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Hawley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Thank you guys for joining us once again today on Locked On Boilermakers. And as always, boiler up, hammer down.